Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the second session of Sons and Lovers. Chapters 4 through 10 mark a shift from establishing the Morel family to exploring the internal dynamics, especially through William and Paul's growth. These chapters span key moments in his family's life, deepening the rift between Gertrude and Walter, while highlighting the sons' attempts to carve out their identities amidst class constraints and emotional entanglements. Let's briefly summarize the key events. Chapter 4, The Young Life of Paul. Paul, now a sensitive adolescent, navigates his factory job at Jordan's Surgical Appliance Manufactory in Nottingham. Gertrude's pride in his artistic talents and intelligence are evident, and her intense emotional bond with him begins to shape his life. Walter's drinking worsens, isolating him further, while Paul's visits to the Levers family at Willey Farm introduce Miriam, a spiritually intense girl who becomes significant later. Chapter 5 is Paul's launch into life. Paul's job at Jordan's exposes him to new social dynamics, including workplace banter and his boss's interest in his sketches. Gertrude's influence remains strong. She disapproves of Paul's flirtations with co-workers like Fanny. Meanwhile, William, now in London, courts a middle-class girl, Louisa, or Gypsy, and that raises class tensions. William's engagement to Gypsy strains his bond with Gertrude, who finds her shallow. William falls ill with pneumonia and dies suddenly, devastating Gertrude. Paul, too, becomes gravely ill with pneumonia, and Gertrude nurses him back to health, deepening their connection. In Chapter 7, Paul's relationship with Miriam grows. Their intellectual and spiritual connection contrasts with her discomfort with physicality, which Paul craves. Gertrude disapproves of Miriam, sensing a rival for Paul's affection. This chapter introduces the Oedipal undertones that echo Lawrence's engagement with Freudian ideas. In Chapter 8, Paul's reaction to Miriam intensifies, but her intensity and reluctance to physical intimacy frustrate him. He meets Clara Doss, a married woman separated from her husband, hinting at future romantic complications. Meanwhile, Walter's decline continues and Gertrude's reliance on Paul grows. In Chapter 9, Paul and Miriam's relationship falters as he feels stifled by her possessiveness. Gertrude's subtle disapproval fuels Paul's ambivalence. The chapter also explores Annie's engagement to Leonard and the family's ongoing struggles with Walter's behavior. In Chapter 10, Paul's interest shifts towards Clara, whose sensuality and independence contrast with Miriam's restraint. The chapter sets up a love triangle, with Paul caught between his mother's emotional hold, Miriam's spiritual pull, and Clara's physical allure. The heart of these chapters is the shifting dynamic between Gertrude, William, and Paul. Lawrence portrays Gertrude as a woman trapped by her marriage to Walter, whose drinking and irresponsibility alienate him from the family. She channels her ambitions and emotional energy into her sons, seeing them as her path to a better life. In Chapter 4 through 6, William embodies Gertrude's hopes for social mobility. His job at the co-op and move to London signal a break from the mining life. But his engagement to Gypsy creates tension. When William dies suddenly, it's a crushing blow. Gertrude's grief is palpable. She was perfectly still with no sign of life. This loss redirects her focus to Paul, intensifying their bond. Paul becomes Gertrude's emotional anchor, especially after William's death. In Chapter 6, when Paul nearly dies of pneumonia, Gertrude's nursing reveals her fierce devotion. This closeness, however, borders on possessiveness, setting up conflicts as Paul seeks independence. Lawrence's autobiographical lens is clear here. His own mother, Lydia, similarly pinned her hopes on him, creating complex emotional dependency. This dynamic reflects the exploration of love as both nurturing and stifling. Gertrude's sacrifices, enduring Walter's abuse, managing the household, make her son's success a personal mission, but it also burdens them with her unfulfilled dreams. Walter and Gertrude's deteriorating marriage shapes William and Paul's emotional lives. Walter's drinking and violence, evident in earlier conflicts and his continued neglect, make him a marginal figure. Paul's shame of Walter's drunken behavior at a fair underscores the children's allegiance to Gertrude. By Chapter 9, Walter's accident in the pit elicits pity but little sympathy from the family, highlighting his isolation. This conflict pushes the sons toward their mother, but it also complicates their development. William seeks escape through ambition, moving to London and courting Gypsy to align with a higher class. only to die before fulfilling his potential. Paul, more introspective, struggles with his mother's expectations. His job at Jordan's offers a glimpse of independence, but Gertrude's disapproval of his social interactions keeps him tethered. Lawrence uses these tensions to explore how parental strife shapes identity. The sons inherit Gertrude's aspirations, but also her discontent, navigating a world where class and family loyalty pull them in opposite directions. Love in Sons and Lovers is complex, intertwined with duty and sacrifice. In these chapters, we see a few things. First, we see Gertrude's sacrifices. She endures Walter's failings to provide for her children, sacrificing her own happiness. Her love for William and Paul is fierce, but possessive, as seen in her disapproval of William's fiancée and Paul's budding relationship with Miriam. William feels obligated to support the family financially, sending money home from London. His engagement to Gypsy, however, suggests a desire to break free, though his death cuts that short. Paul's love for his mother clashes with his growing attraction to Miriam. In chapter 7, their lad and girl love is intellectual, but strained by Miriam's aversion to physicality, which Gertrude senses as a threat. Paul's duty to his mother, especially after William's death, complicates his pursuit of personal freedom. Lawrence portrays love as a force that bonds and burdens, particularly for women like Gertrude, whose sacrifices reflect the limited options of working-class women in the industrial England. Gender shapes the Morels' world profoundly. Gertrude, educated and refined, is confined to domesticity, her ambitions channeled through her sons. Walter, embodying traditional masculinity, is emasculated by his failures and Gertrude's dominance. The sons navigate these models. William adopts a conventional masculine role, pursuing career success in a socially advantageous match. But his death underscores the fragility of such aspirations. Paul, more sensitive, grapples with Gertrude's expectations of masculinity and his own artistic inclinations. His interactions reveal tensions between emotional intimacy and societal norms around male desire. Lawrence critiques rigid gender roles, showing how they constrain both men and women. Gertrude's strength contrasts with Walter's weakness, while Paul's sensitivity challenges traditional expectations of manhood in a mining community.